The rain was relentless, hammering the pavement of Burlington, Vermont, like it had a personal vendetta against the world. Ezra Cole, soaked to the bone, sprinted through the storm, his sneakers slapping puddles, his heart pounding louder than the thunder. He wasn't running from the rain. He was running toward him, toward the moment that would unravel everything he thought he knew. Ezra, 24, had always been the quiet one, the guy who blended into the background with his sketchbook and his oversized flannel shirts. His dark brown eyes held stories he never told, stories of growing up in a small town where being openly gay meant being an outcast. He'd moved to Burlington for college, hoping for a fresh start, a place where he could be himself without fear. But even here, in this liberal haven, he kept his guard up, his heart locked away behind walls built from years of whispered slurs and sidelong glances. That's where Finn Harper came in. Finn, 25, was everything Ezra wasn't. Bold, charismatic, the kind of guy who could charm a room full of strangers with a single grin. With his tousled blonde hair and a laugh that echoed like summer, Finn was the star of their college's theater program. A straight guy who seemed to have it all figured out. They'd met in a literature class, bonded over a shared love for Whitman's poetry, and somehow, against all odds, became friends. Ezra had been careful, so careful, not to let his feelings slip. Finn was straight, after all. He'd said it a dozen times, laughing off any hint of flirtation with a playful shove or a dude. You know I'm not like that. But tonight was different. Tonight, Ezra was running to the old oak tree by Lake Champlain, where Finn had texted him to meet, his message cryptic and urgent. I need to see you. Now, please. The words had burned into Ezra's mind, igniting a spark of hope he'd spent years trying to smother. He didn't know what Finn wanted, but the desperation in that text, the way it trembled with unspoken weight, made Ezra's chest ache with possibility. When he reached the tree, Finn was already there, his denim jacket drenched, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. The lake stretched out behind him, its surface rippling under the storm's assault. Finn's blue eyes locked onto Ezra's, and for a moment, the world went silent. No rain, no wind, just the weight of that gaze. Ezra, Finn said, his voice rough, like he'd been fighting to get the words out. I lied. Ezra's breath caught. Lied about what? Finn took a step closer, close enough that Ezra could smell the cedarwood cologne he always wore. About me. About this. His hand reached out, trembling, and brushed against Ezra's arm. It was a small gesture, but it set Ezra's skin on fire, every nerve screaming with the impossibility of it all. Finn, what are you saying? Ezra's voice was barely a whisper, drowned out by the rain but loud enough for Finn to hear the crack in it. I don't know how to do this, Finn admitted, his eyes searching Ezra's face like he was looking for answers he didn't have. I've been telling myself I'm straight, telling everyone I'm straight, but then I look at you, and he swallowed hard, his voice breaking, and I don't know who I am anymore. Ezra's heart slammed against his ribs. He wanted to reach out, to pull Finn closer, to erase the distance between them. But fear held him back. Fear that this was a mistake, a moment of confusion that would vanish by morning. Finn, you don't have to. I want to. Finn cut him off, his voice fierce now, his hand tightening on Ezra's arm. I've wanted to for so long, but I was too damn scared to admit it. I'm done being scared. And then, in a heartbeat, Finn closed the gap. His lips crashed against Ezra's, tentative at first, then desperate, like he was pouring every unspoken word into that kiss. The rain soaked them both, but neither cared. For Ezra, it was like the world had shifted, like the stars had rearranged themselves just for this moment. Finn, The guy who'd always been so sure of himself was unraveling in his arms, and Ezra was there to catch him. They pulled apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together as the rain streamed down their faces. "What does this mean?" Ezra asked, his voice shaking with hope and fear. Finn's smile was small, uncertain, but real. "I don't know yet, but I want to find out. With you." The next morning, Ezra woke to the sound of his phone buzzing. He was still in his tiny apartment, the memory of Finn's kiss lingering like a dream he was afraid to wake from. The text was from Finn. "Can we talk? Coffee shop, 10 a.m.? Ezra's stomach twisted with nerves, but he typed back a quick yes and threw on his favorite green sweater. The one Finn had once said brought out his eyes. The coffee shop, a cozy spot called the Rusty Spoon, was tucked away on a side street, its windows fogged from the autumn chill. Finn was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs. He looked different in the daylight, vulnerable, his usual confidence replaced by something softer, more raw. "I didn't sleep last night," Finn admitted as Ezra sat down. "Kept replaying everything, wondering if I screwed it up." "You didn't," Ezra said quickly, his heart racing. "But Finn, are you sure? About this? About us?" Finn's fingers drummed on the table, a nervous habit Ezra had noticed months ago. "I've never been less sure of anything in my life," he said, his voice low. "But I know how I feel when I'm with you. Like I'm alive. Like I'm me. Not the version everyone expects me to be." Ezra reached across the table, his hand brushing Finn's. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental, like crossing a line they could never uncross. "Then we figure it out together," he said softly. "No pressure. Just us." For the next few weeks, they did just that. They stole moments between classes, sharing secret smiles in the library, sneaking kisses behind the theater building. But it wasn't all bliss. Finn was struggling, grappling with the weight of his own identity. He'd grown up in a conservative family in rural Maine, where straight wasn't just an assumption, it was a mandate. Coming to terms with his feelings for Ezra meant dismantling everything he'd been taught to believe about himself. One night, they sat on the roof of Ezra's apartment building, the city lights sparkling below. Finn was quiet, his knees pulled to his chest. "What if I'm not brave enough for this?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "What if I hurt you?" Ezra's chest tightened, but he reached for Finn's hand. "You're already braver than you think," he said. "You're here, aren't you?" Finn looked at him, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You don't have to deserve me," Ezra said, his voice fierce. "You just have to be you." But the world wasn't as kind as Ezra's words. The first crack appeared at a theater rehearsal, where Finn was playing the lead in a modern adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Ezra had come to watch, sitting in the back row with his sketchbook, capturing Finn's every move on the stage. Finn was electric, his presence commanding, but when he glanced at Ezra, his performance faltered. Just for a moment, but long enough for the director, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara, to notice. "Harper, focus," Clara snapped, her voice cutting through the auditorium. Finn nodded, but his eyes kept drifting to Ezra, a silent plea in them. After rehearsal, Clara cornered Finn backstage. Ezra, waiting by the exit, overheard enough to make his stomach churn. "You're distracted, Finn," Clara said, her tone softer but firm. "If you want to be taken seriously, you need to get your head in the game. Whatever's going on with you and that kid in the back, it's not helping." Finn's voice was tight. "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" Clara pressed. Because I've seen the way you look at him. Ezra slipped out before he could hear Finn's response, his heart pounding. He didn't want to be the reason Finn lost focus, the reason his dreams took a hit. But when Finn found him later, sitting on a bench by the lake, he didn't apologize. Instead, he sat down and took Ezra's hand, his grip firm. "She's wrong," Finn said, his voice steady. "You're not a distraction. You're the only thing keeping me grounded right now." Ezra wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at him. "What did you tell her?" he asked. Finn hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't know what to say. I'm not ready to tell everyone. Not yet." Ezra nodded, swallowing the sting of those words. He understood, God, he understood, but it didn't make it hurt any less. "Take your time," he said, forcing a smile. "I'll be here." But time was a luxury they didn't have. Rumors started swirling, whispers among the theater crowd, sidelong glances in the hallways. Finn grew tense, his easy smile fading. Ezra tried to be his anchor, but he could feel Finn slipping, caught between who he was and who he thought he had to be. One evening, they went to a local bar, the Lantern, hoping for a night of normalcy. The place was packed, the air thick with laughter and the clink of glasses. They found a corner booth, their knees brushing under the table. For a while, it felt like they could be anyone, a couple stealing a moment in a crowded world. But then a group of Finn's theater friends showed up, their voices loud and teasing. "Hey, Harper, who's your date?" One of them, a guy named Jake, called out, his tone playful but edged with something sharper. Finn froze, his hand pulling back from Ezra's. "He's not, we're just friends," he said quickly, his voice strained. Ezra's heart sank, but he forced a laugh, playing along. "Yeah, just keeping this guy out of trouble," he said, his voice lighter than he felt. Jake smirked, clearly unconvinced, and the conversation shifted, but the damage was done. Finn barely spoke for the rest of the night, his eyes fixed on his beer. When they left, Ezra couldn't hold back anymore. "Why did you do that?" he asked, his voice shaking as they stood on the sidewalk, the neon sign of the lantern casting a red glow over them. "Do what?" Finn asked, but his tone was defensive, like he already knew. "Act like I'm nothing to you," Ezra said, his voice breaking. "Like we're nothing." Finn's face crumpled. "I panicked, okay? I'm not ready for everyone to know. Not like you are." Ezra took a step back, the words hitting like a slap. "You think I'm ready? You think I'm not scared every damn day? I've been out since I was 16, Finn, and it's never gotten easier. But I'm not ashamed of who I am, or who I love." Finn's eyes widened, the word love hanging between them like a live wire. "Ezra, forget it," Ezra said, turning away. "I need some air." He walked off into the night, his chest tight, his mind racing. He didn't know how to navigate this, loving someone who was still running from himself. But even as he walked, he couldn't shake the memory of Finn's kiss, the way it had felt like a promise, like a future they could build together. Ezra didn't sleep that night. He sat on his couch, sketching Finn's face from memory, each line a mix of love and frustration. By morning, his phone was silent, no texts, no calls. He told himself it was fine, that Finn just needed time, but the silence felt like a rejection all its own. When he finally saw Finn again, it was by chance at a campus poetry reading. Finn was on stage, reciting a piece he'd written, his voice raw and powerful. The words were about freedom, about breaking chains, and Ezra felt them like a punch to the gut. When Finn finished, their eyes met across the room, and for a moment, Ezra thought he saw an apology in Finn's gaze. After the reading, Finn found him outside, the air crisp with the promise of winter. "I'm sorry," Finn said, his voice low. "I was a coward at the bar. I didn't mean to hurt you." Ezra wanted to stay angry, but the sincerity in Finn's eyes melted his resolve. "I know it's hard," he said, "but I can't keep doing this halfway. I need you to be all in, or I have to let you go." Finn's jaw tightened, and he nodded. "I'm trying, Ezra. I swear I am. Just give me a little more time." Ezra agreed, but the tension between them lingered. They kept seeing each other, but every moment felt fragile, like a glass sculpture teetering on the edge of a table. Finn was trying. He came out to a close friend, a quiet girl named Mia who hugged him and told him she'd always known. But the bigger steps, like telling his family or being open in public, still felt impossible. Then came the night of the theater's big performance. Finn had landed the role of Romeo, and Ezra was there, front row, his heart swelling with pride. Finn was radiant on stage, his every line infused with passion. But during the final scene, when Romeo kissed Juliet, Ezra felt a pang of jealousy. Not for the kiss itself, but for the ease with which Finn could play that role, could be someone he wasn't. After the show, Ezra waited backstage, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Finn emerged, still in costume, his face flushed with adrenaline. "You were amazing," Ezra said, meaning it. Finn grinned, but there was a shadow in his eyes. "Can we go somewhere?" he asked. "Just us." They ended up at the lake again, under the same oak tree where everything had started. The night was clear, the stars bright above them. Finn took a deep breath, his hands shaking. "I told my parents," he said, "about us." Ezra's heart stopped. "What? When?" "This morning," Finn said, his voice trembling. "I called them, told them I'm not straight, that I'm with you." Ezra's eyes widened. "What did they say?" Finn looked away, his jaw tight. "They didn't take it well. My dad, he said I was confused, that I needed to come home and fix this. My mom just cried." Ezra reached for him, pulling him into a hug. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, "but I'm so proud of you." Finn clung to him, his body shaking. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, "but I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Ezra said fiercely. "We'll figure it out. Together." The fallout from Finn's coming out was brutal. His parents stopped calling, their silence louder than any argument. Finn threw himself into his theater work, but Ezra could see the toll it was taking. The dark circles under his eyes, the way his smile didn't quite reach them anymore. Ezra did everything he could to support him. He cooked dinners in his tiny kitchen, played Finn's favorite music, listened when Finn needed to talk. But the weight of Finn's family's rejection was a shadow they couldn't escape. One night, Finn showed up at Ezra's apartment, his eyes red-rimmed. "They sent me a letter," Finn said, his voice hollow. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his pocket. "They want me to come home for Christmas, but only if I leave this phase behind." Ezra's heart ached. "What are you going to do?" Finn shook his head. "I don't know. I love them, Ezra, but I love you too, and I'm tired of choosing." "Then don't," Ezra said, taking Finn's hands. "You don't have to choose. You can be their son and be with me. They'll come around. They just need time." Finn's eyes searched Ezra's, desperate for reassurance. "What if they don't?" "Then you'll still have me," Ezra said, his voice steady. "And Mia and your friends here. You're not alone, Finn." For a while, things got better. Finn started opening up, holding Ezra's hand in public, introducing him as his boyfriend to their theater friends. The whispers didn't stop, but Finn seemed to care less. his confidence slowly returning. They spent Thanksgiving together at Mia's apartment, laughing and eating until they couldn't move, and for the first time, Ezra felt like they were building something real. But the holidays loomed, and with them, Finn's decision about going home. Ezra could see the conflict tearing him apart, the fear of losing his family warring with his need to be true to himself. On the night before Finn was supposed to leave, they lay in Ezra's bed, the room lit only by a string of fairy lights. "I'm going," Finn said quietly. "I have to try. For them." Ezra nodded, his throat tight. "I get it. Just come back to me. Okay?" Finn turned to him, his eyes fierce. "Always." Finn's trip home was a disaster. He called Ezra from a gas station on Christmas Eve, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. "They wouldn't even let me in the house," he said. "My dad said I'm not their son anymore." Ezra's heart broke, but he kept his voice calm. "Where are you now?" "Driving back," Finn said. "I need to see you." Ezra stayed up all night, waiting. When Finn finally arrived, he looked like a ghost of himself, his eyes hollow, his shoulders slumped. Ezra pulled him into his arms, holding him as he cried. "You're enough," Ezra whispered. "You're more than enough." Over the next few months, Finn and Ezra rebuilt, piece by piece. Finn found a therapist, someone who helped him navigate the pain of his family's rejection. He threw himself into his art, writing a play about identity and love that earned him a scholarship to a prestigious theater program in New York. Ezra, inspired by Finn's courage, started showing his sketches publicly, his art a celebration of their love. One spring evening, they returned to the oak tree by Lake Champlain. The air was warm, the lake shimmering under the setting sun. Finn took Ezra's hand, his smile brighter than it had been in months. "I was wrong," he said. "That night when I said I didn't know who I was. I know now. I'm yours." Ezra laughed, tears in his eyes. "And I'm yours." They kissed under the tree, the world around them fading away. It wasn't a perfect ending. Finn's family was still distant, and the world still had its sharp edges, but it was theirs. They had fought for it, bled for it, and now they stood together, stronger for it. As they walked back to Ezra's apartment, hand in hand, Ezra realized something. Love wasn't just the spark of a kiss or the thrill of a touch. It was the courage to keep going, to choose each other, even when the world said no. And in that choice, they'd found something unbreakable.